All right, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to POV Crypto. This time we are here with Carlos Roldan, the CEO and co-founder of Satoshis Games, a really awesome, cool gaming company that is optimizing for building on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Carlos, welcome to POV Crypto. Thanks for coming on.
Hi all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Carlos, where are you calling in from? What's that accent we hear?
Yeah, that's Spain.
Nice. Well, Carlos, would love to get the quick introduction of both you and Satoshis Games. Would love to hear about what you guys are building.
Yeah, so I found Satoshis Games back 1.5 years ago. Well, first, I'm a computer scientist, graduated in Aberystwyth University in UK. And I started Satoshis Games back when I was in my last year in uni, when I was doing my dissertation. Satoshis Games is a gaming platform where users can earn money, can earn Bitcoin playing games, and we are building games on top of Lightning Network on Bitcoin.
Cool. So what does that actually mean to be building a game on top of Lightning?
It means that when you are using rewards, where you're using penalties, those elements from the game doesn't affect the actual game score or the game balance. It affects directly and natively the Lightning balance, which is the actual game balance.
So if somebody might be playing a game in the legacy game world and they'll be getting a score. What Satoshi's Games do is instead of having a score, that's a Lightning balance. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good approximation to what I mean to say.
So it's a financial game.
It's a game of value.
Yeah, game of value. Interesting, but not strictly separate from gambling or integrated with gambling.
I mean, you could do it with using gambling options like a casino, but we are very far away from that because we are not focusing on that. We're actually building games that are skill-based.
Okay, skill-based games that you can win or lose Satoshis. What are the games that I can go play right now?
So currently live on Satoshis.games, you have a few options. I mean, the most popular one is the Super Pro, which is basically a Super Mario replica that every coin in the game is a real Satoshi. And the actual challenge is like, if you actually make it to finish the game, you can withdraw your Satoshis to your wallet. However, if you actually die in the process, because the NPCs are quite strong, or maybe you don't have enough skills, or maybe you make it not in time per level, you actually lose and have to start again. Or, and this is where the monetization and pricing takes place, you can buy additional lives, or you can buy a multiplier and in-game content that actually modify and maybe improves your game experience.
Okay, so people like have to buy into the game and then they start the game at a loss, but then as they play the game, they earn more Satoshis and at some point they go positive, but if they die, they have to start back over. Is that generally the model?
Yeah, I mean, that's the general model. However, every game is shaped differently according to the mechanics of the value. So not all of the games, due to the nature of the game, fits this model, of course.
Mm-hmm. So what's the balance like? Are people making more money? Or is Satoshi's Games kind of running at a loss? Or are you guys actually looking to generate revenue by winning your customers' money? Like, what's the balance there like?
For this game, for this website in specific, you mean, or the actual company itself?
Both.
So yeah, for this game in specific, it's quite challenging because there are cases where actual gamers are good at it, and that's because they've been trying, and they've done it. And it's interesting because they make it and they withdraw the Satoshis. And there are others that actually jump onto more greedy options because they feel they can do it, then they buy multiplier. Those times, so they buy lives and they keep dying, and that's profitable. And in the sense that is interesting. However, not the actual company is having revenue, so we are making revenues because our mainstream of revenues are not based on the Satoshis.games product; it's based on Lightning that you can already pre-order from the website lightning.io. But
So quick question,
Yeah.
Carlos, let's take a quick step back and like, why don't you give the listeners like the overview of, everything that is in kind of the Satoshis.games portfolio? Because you're working on a bunch of different things, including some of the games that you mentioned.
Yeah. So it's interesting because at the beginning, we were building Satoshis.games, which is like a mini clip Bitcoin platform where there are Bitcoin games. And regarding to this, we've been doing this for a year, just to test out if there was actually a market out there where we can actually gather metrics to actually do something bigger. The actual benchmark results, the benchmark segment results were interesting because we could gather data from the actual users playing Satoshis.games according to the demanded games, the demanded characteristic of what they were looking for playing when they actually go and play a game. And that's why we came up with Light Night. So basically, in a short story, we did Satoshi.games to actually test the market and find out if there was market out there. And then we decided, based on that result, we jumped on something bigger, and we decided to go for a specific game where we can allocate all of the resources or most of the resources to that game to create a game that may overpass and overcome the gamer expectations for this. And going back to the question, we're building we're building Satoshi.games. That is a website. It's a web-based gaming platform. We are building on Light Night, and that's currently the two only products we are focusing right now.
So what is the grand vision of Satoshis.games? If you guys were like maximally successful and you guys had all the users and players like that you wanted, where would you take Satoshis.games? Like where's the vision of the company going?
Yeah, so the vision of the company right now is providing a fair trade for not only for assets, but actually for users. Currently, the best games are profitable, like Fortnite or any other kind of game. They are making high profits by making a freemium game where you can buy assets, and that's cool, right? But those games doesn't allow you the opportunity to actually sell those assets. I mean, you can sell your account, but it's not the same. I mean, you cannot do it through the actual game either. You have to go to a third party. So it's interesting that this outperforms very well in the market, but it's not fair for the gamers. So if Satoshi's game succeeds, it's basically because of this. Basically because it's giving the right to, as well as you can buy in-game assets, you can sell those assets. And as well, you can sell those assets, you can actually cash out the profits using Lightning. And no matter if those profits are 0.001 cent or $300, because of the infrastructure provider of Lightning Network lets you do it in the same fair way. So that would be the case if we succeed, because because the actual market and the users find out that's more fair for them, that's better gaming experience, and is more attractive as well.
Carlos, so you kind of described Satoshis.games, the web-based website, and now, like you mentioned, you are putting all your resources into building this kind of full-featured game, Light Night. Can you kind of dive into what is Light Night and how you guys are using Lightning to both create payments, real payments, but also in-game items that are kind of like tangible, non-fungible items?
Yeah, okay, that's a very broad question. So let's go first to what is basically Light Night. So basically Light Night is a multiplayer battle royale game, but with a Bitcoin mode that rewards winners on top of a very low poly cartoon style where attracts a vast majority of the gaming segment, not only gamers that they are not young. So that's what it is. So it brings a new level of interaction between players, because now you have different cases where you can monetize in a different level, since game assets to gaming experiences. And we've been doing this in Satoshis.games, and I can point you to references of what game assets you can buy or what gaming experience you can monetize. because that's what we've been doing, like a proof of concept or very pilot or reckless stage at Satoshis Games. But now we want to do it at a mainstream level with more professional resources, more time to deliver a high quality product. And that's what it is. Basically, you can play Dyna, you can earn Bitcoin, you can start stacking sats by playing on competitive mode, you can get assets, sell those assets. And going back now to the second part of the question regarding to the NFTs, the actual assets that we were talking, is very interesting because the game itself has two modes, which the first mode is like the actual casual way where you can buy items in the store and then you can sell those items. But when you play on that casual game, it's like Fortnite. So you play, you came with your skins, you had your good cosmetics. No matter if you die or if you win, because you're gonna at the end of the game you're gonna keep those assets and they are yours. They are in your account. However, if you play in the esports, that's when the actual interesting and attractive of the game starts to appear. Because first, there is a way limited and smaller supply, so there are a maximum of around roughly 20 players. That's around 4 squads. But if you die, your skins drop to the ground, and this brings to strategic decisions because if someone grabs that loot and it's a good skin, a good cosmetic, everyone has a limited supply, a limited capacity in the backpack. So you have to take the decision whether if you grab that loot and then you make it to win the battle royale, now you have that item in your account and then you can sell it. Now, if you don't grab it and that item stays there on the ground and no one pick it up, that actual item is lost, reducing the total supply of that item and bringing more rarity, bringing less supply, creating a higher, if there is demand, a higher price for that item because now there is less amount of that item. And this is cool. This is cool because it brings more competitive way of thinking, more strategy into the actual shooting game. Because let's put the case where you are playing this game and you kill one guy with a very cool hat. So you go there and maybe you find that guy has a cool hat. You have maybe 2 spots, 1 spot. You have a limited spots in your backpack. So maybe he has a really good weapon, an actual really good weapon that can bring you, can deliver you, can leverage your possibilities to win the game because that's a better gun. Let's say you have I use a pistol. So you have to take these strategic decisions to choose what loot, to pick up from other player, either ammo or this good weapon or that valuable assets in the game. You have to take this decision in a matter of seconds while you are in a battle royale where people are around you. You have to be quick. You have to take it, professionally the decision because that item may cost X, and it's better to have X value or revenues from that match. But you can only have it if you actually win it. So it's decision based as well. It's strategy, not decision based. So this may happen in a matter of seconds, and while enemies approximate you on the battlefield, so it's kind of challenging from that sense.
So just to break this down a little bit, kind of what I've learned and envisioned and gathered from checking out the website and what you described, it's kind of like Fortnite style game, except with your own style. But there is essentially a like risk on mode, and the risk on mode has actual Satoshis at stake, as well as all of the items that you could have purchased, like your skins, hats, guns, whatever. All of those items, essentially, if they're on you and you're playing the game, they're at risk. And if you die, they get dropped and people can pick them up. And if no one picks them up, then they're actually burnt and they're lost from the game ultimately. All of these items are centralized. They're managed by your company, but you allow people to monetize those items and actually sell them for Bitcoin so they become more liquid to the real world. If you have a rare skin in Fortnite right now, you can't take it out. You can't sell it for Bitcoin and eventually turn that into USD if that's what you ultimately want. You're kind of stuck. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, I mean, that's more time. So first, you have these 2 modes. The ones you put them at risk, which are the esports mode, the competitive mode, or the one where you never put them at risk. So maybe you're a casual player. So you play casual, you buy assets just to show off your assets on the casual. and you don't have to risk anything because you're not going to earn anything that a great gaming experience. Okay, within this casual mode, before jumping into this sports mode, you have like another sub modes, which are you can play solo, you can play duos, or you can play squads, and you can play events. These events are like casual events that happen in the game, in the battlefield, where maybe there is an Easter egg in a map, and then you have to go there and find it, and then that rewards you with Satoshis, like free Satoshis. Obviously, this is not going to be, a way to make you of a living. This is going to be, from the business perspective, it's going to be a marketing purpose. For the user perspective, it's going to be a way to have some Satoshis by playing a game that sometimes runs event, and that's cool. So maybe you find a bank and you have to destroy it, and then that gives you Satoshis, or maybe you have to find one more player is infected and infects other players, and the one who is the last infected gets a few Satoshis for playing. So that's for incentivizing the actual game, and as well for marketing purposes, of course. Now, the esports. The esports, you go there because you want to grab assets that then you want to sell off and make profits out of that assets. While doing that, you put yourself as a risk, you put your assets you were on as a collateral. And on the matchmaking process, it links you with other players that they have your same range, so they're in the same skill level as you, and B, they're wearing the same value in assets as you. So there is a fair play. Those assets initially are going to be stored in a centralized database, of course. But we are open, and we are actually internally debating and thinking about making NFTs, whether it makes sense, whether it doesn't make sense. Because I don't want to make the classical blockchain game where it's 90% blockchain, 10% game experience, and that sucks. Because that happened in most of the blockchain games. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, where you have all of those NFTs, which are cool, they are game assets, that's right. But maybe you don't have a good soundtrack, you don't have a good animation, you don't have a good game mechanics, you don't have actually graphics, you don't have design. So you are missing points. And here what I mean to emphasize is that the actual Bitcoin integration is as important as the good soundtrack, as the good game design, as the art, as the actual mechanics, as the actual strategy of creating addiction to the game, of creating a good experience. So it's as important as those elements. So they want to make, boom, all blockchain. I have the Bitcoin pack, I have the blockchain pack there. Here, if we can tokenize, we're going to tokenize. If we have this blockchain base, we're going to have them. If I want to certify game assets, I'm going to make even, blockchain certification. No, I mean, if it's not required for the potential customer, it's not going to be implemented just because it's flashy or it's good marketing saying, hey, we got NFTs. So we want to create an amazing gaming experience that onboard no coiners, agnostic gamers into Bitcoin in a format of a game. Now, this potential segment, they don't care if a game asset is stored in a distributed database, computing, or if it's not. They care about the game. Now, if you may give them an opportunity to have some Satoshis rewards and everything, then they're still skeptical and agnostic because maybe it's a field that they're not aware of. But if you're starting to say this game grants you with a minimum level of expertise for managing tokens, maybe that game is not the adequate game for onboarding no coiners into the Bitcoin adoption, because then it requires you a level of knowledge about this interaction with the game that they are not used to it, because they're used to do something simpler.
So when it comes to issuing these NFTs, which represent items in the game, how would you go about doing that? Like, where are these NFTs actually located?
At the beginning, as I say, there would not be NFTs. It's something that we like to consider, but if I will have to choose where our NFTs will be located, it will be, if we can make it, we'll make it on RGB. However, it's quite early to do so for production. However, we have time, so I have so much positive thoughts about by the time of the launch. But if we can't,
okay, so they would just represent tokens on Liquid.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
I mean, each edition of a skin that comes with a limited amount of types will represent a different token, of course.
Right. And so the benefit of having a token on Liquid or tokens on Liquid that represent things in the game is that it allows users to do with those tokens as they see fit outside of your central database. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. But
Kind of.
what's the point if now my game servers are they are destroyed because of a natural disaster? So what are you gonna do with those tokens in your wallet if you cannot use them?
Well, yeah. So maybe the idea
yeah.
is generating a marketplace. And so like what
Yeah.
we've seen with Gauze Unchained is that you can use their Gauze Unchained token cards only in their game, which runs on their centralized database. But the community has produced these like third-party marketplaces and third-party forums for people to be able to, transact their tokens between each other. And so it sounds like that's what you guys are doing, what could be doing with Liquid.
Yeah, the Liquid RGB comments that I did before, that's in the case that we will be approaching that way.
Right.
In that case, that's what I would do. Now, it's super important to have, what's the purpose of that? If that's for marketing or for raising a little bit of revenues so we can make more resources, that's cool because we have NFTs, we are all powered now, that's cool, we make some noise and then we use that noise in our benefit. But if it's for a good gaming experience, that's where the actual skepticism is taking place from my side, because at some point in some games that doesn't make sense.
Right.
At some others it does.
I guess it really depends on the design of the game and how much those items are actually worth. So like if they're just cosmetics for some Super Mario game, that's one thing. But if they are like World of Warcraft swords and armor, that's another thing, because those things have gone on the market for thousands and thousands of dollars. So
but still, if the game servers of Warcraft they die,
right, then
you end up with a few tokens that you have a marketplace without utility to share that, and it's like a shitcoin casino where there are so many tokens without value, used with promises of value, because you cannot use them in the game, because the possibility to not use them is possible, because if we centralize the actual game where it unifies the interactivity of that asset to that game, then there is a central point of risk of failure.
Something that kind of popped in my head is the NFT gaming model. It might only really make sense for card games, because a card game, like, anyone can spin up their own version of like a server to host the card game. So maybe for Gods Unchained, maybe that's like one of the very few examples where it does work. Because if it's any other type of game, unless other people are trying to integrate that item into their game as well, like, you're kind of dependent on that game server being up and like those developers keeping it up. Like, can you think of like other game formats, David or Carlos, that it really are kind of independent of the company making it happen?
If you make connections and collaborations with other games where you can exchange that asset and that asset has a utility on a different game, no matter if it's card based, it can work perfectly, because then you are reducing the risk of failure to one central point of control, which is that specific game. So maybe you can have an asset that works on multiple games, and that can be an example that, for example, I would be happy to do if the situation is presented. So you can have my sword, and I can play with that in my game. But then you can play that sword is another card on Chain Gods, and you can play there, and then you can play that sword on Neon District. So you can play, and it has super value, because then you can play that asset is super useful.
Yeah. I don't think the idea with Gods Unchained is like to create this like immutable game that will always be available to play. It's more about putting the assets into the hands of the owners and allowing them to buy and sell them as they see fit, which is unlike what Blizzard is doing, where everything is just inside of their gated database and you can't do anything with. And so it's not really about having these tokens that are that have value no matter what. but they have functioning inside of the game and outside of the game, whereas like the traditional system only has functioning inside of the game. So it's about allowing the tokens to actually leave the game and do things elsewhere because of the existence of the game itself.
No, yeah, I highly agree.
Mm-hmm. And so there's been a decent amount of communication about the whole idea with gaming assets in games and interoperability between assets and games. And I think that's a really interesting idea, but I don't see the incentives actually being there, because like if you're a game developer and you have all these assets that users and players can collect after, you know, grinding through the game and playing hard and you know, committing them their time. Well, then if you are another game developer with a second game and you just allow all those assets to come into your game, you're allowing people to like kind of skip their way into having really valuable assets that they never played the game for. So I don't really see how that kind of alignment will actually play out, because I don't see the incentives for the game developers to actually be there.
It depends on the asset functionality. If we're talking about they're sharing a gun and 3 games use the same asset, the same gun for the same purpose, which is creating damage on players, then it may be the case. But maybe it doesn't make it doesn't make sense for assets that they don't serve the same functionality in one game or other.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, so like if there's 2 games and the one token can go in between these 2 games, like who determines what each token does inside of each game? Like one could be a super mythic piece of armor that does all these buffs, and then in this other game it could be like a broken sword. Like it's all ultimately going to come down to the centralized control of the game developers. And so I think that with these game developers that are using crypto digital assets, I think it's always going to come down to like it's really up to the developers no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And the actual decision of who developer decides what is also important, because maybe you create an asset to serve your game exclusively, and then you find yourself in a situation where you maybe not do that. You maybe also make it for serving other games. So you also have to take that into account before creating that asset.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Carlos, kind of want to pivot this conversation back to Lightning. You guys are some of the first people to really try to bring a mass appeal to outsiders to get onto Lightning. Like, what do you like? Why? Where do you see the potential in Lightning, and how does Lightning? How do you think Lightning is going to start becoming part of games in general?
I think Lightning brings a wave of monetization that we've never seen before. I mean, the fact you can, for asset trading, for example, is perfect. I mean, the fact you can trade an asset within the game, well, in the game, all of it are assets. So you have assets, and I'm talking about assets. They can be from sounds to actual visual aspects, visual cosmetics aspects of the game. And those visual aspect cosmetics that you want to hold them or you want to use them in your benefit within the game is super interesting. The fact you can trade those assets using a liquid payment that is not only extremely scalable, but it also can bring you a super fair trade no matter the cost of that asset. So that's super useful. I mean, the fact that my asset can cost 0.0001 and your asset costs 3 or 300, if we can operate the same trade at the same level of advantages, is something we've never seen before in the NFTs world. I mean, because you cannot do that in other platform that maybe the transaction fee might be a friction that affects directly the recipient cost.
Do you think that Lightning is going to like be adopted by major game developers, or is it too far away still?
Is a challenge to say that is. I mean, if I say that right now is good moment to say, yeah, it's gonna work right now, we can jump on board. You can jump on board. Game developers. That is not going to be that case in the long term, because I think I think it's a medium between one pole, between one side and the other. Because first you have to tell them what is this for, and you have to put practical cases. And in our case, we've done it before. We did like a Bitcoin and Lightning SDK to integrate Lightning for our gaming purposes, and then we've been going through other game developers in case they want to use it, so they want to have benefits as well as we did in Satoshis Games, and they are free to use it. So it's interesting as well for us, so they can give us feedback. But most of the feedback that I have from these conversations and operations are that they first are not really motivated because they cannot foresee the actual incentives in doing so. And secondly, it might be so complicated to actually do a complete replacement of their game coin to the actual Bitcoin because they are not ready yet to foresee the potential. However, it's good, and I saw this personally, if you offer them like a gradual way to do so. So if you tell them, okay, with Lightning you can do this, and all of these things you can do. But first, let's start by the most basic thing. Let's start by using Lightning, not in the actual in-game experience, but let's start to use it as a monetization experience. So instead of you give them a magical chest every time they connect once per day, you can give them 5 Satoshis once per day. And maybe if that brings more traction, if that makes more user acquisition, if that means more key points improvements, better performance, more attractive metrics, then that's an incentive to actually use all of the functionalities that Lightning can bring to your game and improve your advantages and everything itself. But it's better to start by something small and see results if you have them than implement all of them in the short term.
I think this is something that crypto uniquely enables as a technology, because I think the intersection between like young studio gaming companies that don't have the same kind of capital that like Blizzard or Activision has or whatever, it's an interesting way to onboard new users just with saying like, hey, if you play our game you can win money. And the microtransaction abilities of the Lightning network kind of is a huge pull for people to come in and be like, this is a unique game. It kind of looks like all the other internet games out there, but with this one, like, you win money and you can get it delivered to you instantly, and you don't have to sign up for PayPal to do that. I think that's a pretty interesting way to incentivize people to come in and play your game just by paying them money. It's kind of cool.
Carlos, what would you say you think is, like, I guess, if Lightning were to get adopted via gaming, what would that look like? Would it look like indie game developers start picking it up first and start using it for marketing purposes? Like, I guess, like, what are the main benefits, and how do you see that evolving?
That's a good question. Yeah, you described it very well, the question as an answer. I mean, the best way will be to actually incentivize the indie developers so they can bring some little traction from their communities to adopt this technology as a standard, to have incentives from the game to outside. The important element now is not that will happen fluent, frictionless. The important element is like how you incentivize the indie game developers to actually adopt this technology. And I've been trying to figure it out during so long, but I only see the only way is doing the same as everyone is doing to make them implement their SDKs. It's like, hey, let's run for a game hackathon where you implement this game for this thematic, with this theme, and you win X if you implement this technology. That at the end is a win-win, because I'm giving you the chance to win something that is gonna let your gamers to win something else. And I would say that. I would say like that. I mean, I think as a mainstream adoption, there has to be a utility. It has to be a killer application. I mean, I'm not saying that money itself is not a killer application, because I'm a high believer that, but the only problem is like, it may be a matter of time, but it doesn't aim to to the majority of mindset that this is, is your money, is your free, is your free money. You don't depend on banks. Okay, that's cool, but people are not that sensitive at the moment. Sadly, I mean, not even the 100% of the world, but maybe there's something else, that some applications that you can put, Bitcoin there on the cover, like hey, get money easily, in the same way that you do it in playing a game, but now this game can be exported of the game. Hey, magic money, right? So something like that, in the sense that maybe the killer app is I mean, it's sad that I don't see that now, that the killer app is money, is finance, is your own finance, is your own bank. That's not the killer app. But I may see that there may be a case where the killer app could be gaming, where all of these guys that they play games, it becomes a standard, and it actually unifies them, the actual to withdraw money easily from the game. And it can become the potential killer app, not only because most of them, they represent a young segment of the population, which they may be normally agile with technologies, is that they are already used to using this tech, and not Bitcoin specifically, but just transacting. I mean, they play games, and within that game, they use that game to earn score, to buy items in the score, to sell balance from their game to another player. So they already are using to this transaction flow of how to use Bitcoin, and you need to replace the actual currency, connect it to the Bitcoin network, and then just tell them a few other rules that they can use, such as withdraw, that they are maybe not used to withdraw from their game. Probably something else about, Bitcoin standards, but I see the potential on this, on gaming, answering the question, because first, it improves the gaming experience. Secondly, they are used to that. They are used to doing this practice of sending and receiving balance among users and that.
I have no more questions. Do you have any more questions, Christian? Or should we wrap it up? You're muted.
Sorry?
Okay, you took your headphones out. But yeah, hey, we can wrap it up. Carl, yeah, definitely put the headphones back in.
You say something, Christian?
Yeah. Just want to make sure he's good. So Carlos, I think that, it's been pretty interesting to kind of hear your take on how to use this technology, and really focusing in on usability rather than turning it into some sort of investable asset. I thought that was a pretty big distinction from when I was talking to, when we were talking to Gods Unchained. In general, though, I do think that there's a lot of potential for people to monetize their games better. I think that's really where it is. Like, Bitcoin is internet money that's permissionable and liquid. And like, you're seeing this with the casinos, like how it unified all the gaming casinos. They're all using Bitcoin to withdraw. You're seeing this with kind of these gift cards too, right? Or these points back programs. First, it was like dollar denominated points back program. And now there's Bitcoin denominated points back program. And the Bitcoin is almost better because it's permissionless. So I'm excited to see, games like yours start taking advantage of these features of Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, sorry. So what's the specific question about this?
No. I was just kind of like making a statement. And
okay.
Honestly, I think there's a good place to kind of wrap it up. Appreciate your time, Carlos, and kind of explaining your guys' take on how to use this technology in gaming. Carlos, where can people find you, and who do you want to hear from?
Yeah, so people can find me on Twitter if they find Whitey Hat. You can find the game on it's called Light Night Game on Twitter, and then it's
how do you spell it?
Light Night is Li, like lightning, and then night is NIT. LIGHTNITE.io.
Nice.
So yeah, that's where you can buy it. And you can also find it on Twitter. And we usually run some promos with guys in the space where you can buy exclusive skins. If you buy the game from some certain wallets. Yeah, so that's it.
Awesome, Carlos. Thank you for coming on and telling us all about Satoshis Games. Really appreciate your time. You guys can follow the pod at POV Crypto Pod. You can follow me at Trustless State, both on Twitter and on Medium. Christian?
Yep, you can find me at CK_snarks. Make sure to give us 5-star reviews and make sure to tune into the other half of our gaming special, which was with Gods Unchained. So you get both the Ethereum and the Bitcoin take on how this tech, how cryptocurrencies are going to be used in gaming. Thanks for listening, everyone. Peace.
Boom. Nice.
Okay.